In today's video, we continue on with our NHL offseason plan series. Today, we are looking at the 30th ranked team in the NHL, the Nashville Predators. One of the biggest shocks and surprises of all the NHL teams this year, to see them as low as they were. We'll take a look at their 24-25 season, take a look at what we should expect from them this summer when it comes to the draft, free agency, trades. How do they make things better going into next year so this doesn't happen again? Can they even avoid it? We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're going to look at the Nashville Predators and explore their off-season plan for the upcoming summer, since they are one of the most disappointing teams this year. They're certainly not a team that you expected to miss the playoffs, let alone be as low in the standings as they were. Now, maybe long-term it'll be a good thing, which I know is probably a tough pill for a lot of fans to swallow. But it's been a long time since they've had such a high draft pick, right? So they're guaranteed top five. They're the third lowest ranked team in the league, so they have the third best chance at first overall. The worst case scenario is that two other teams below them win and they get knocked down two spots, so they're looking at top five. So there's going to be an impact player that should be available for them to pick up. In this video, we're going to recap the 24-25 season, take a look at their results, look at the changes they've made, how those changes have not worked, and analyze their cap space, contracts that are expiring, any contract extensions we could see this offseason, what do they have coming in the pipeline for rookies, and then take a look at the top questions facing the team, which will determine, what do they do in the draft, what do they do in free agency, and the trade market in the summer. So we'll discuss all that here momentarily, but first let's recap last year to put up all the numbers on how things went, because it wasn't pretty. They finished with a record of 30, 44, and 8 for 68 points. That is a drastic drop. The year before, they were a playoff team and had 99 points. That's a 31-point drop. And of course, we know that they were one of the big spenders in the offseason and free agency and added some pretty, good players with great histories and resumes. So it's so shocking how things went. They scored 214 goals, which was down substantially as well, down from 269 the year before. That's a massive drop. Goals against went way up. They were allowed 274. The year before was 248. So again, when you're scoring a lot less and you're giving up a lot more, that's a really bad recipe, and it's going to go to a lot more losses. Power play and penalty kill were actually okay. Surprisingly, special teams weren't bad. It was the 5-on-5 game where they really lacked the most. 21.9% power play and an 81.5% PK. For seventh best. So really, special teams were respectable. 5-on-5, not so much. UC Saros certainly had one of the worst years in his career, 20-31-6 record, a 298 goals against, and an 896 save percentage. Of course, they ended up moving backup goaltender Scott Wedgwood early in the season, and they ended up getting Justice Noonan coming back from the Colorado Avalanche in that trade. They got he had a 15-15-1 record, a 318 goals against, and an 883 save percentage. He's had his struggles too. So goaltending this year, not great. Can you blame the team in front of them? Absolutely you can, but at the end of the day, when you have an all-star goaltender that you just locked up to a mega long-term deal, you do expect them to hopefully bail you out occasionally, but I think there was just too many of those incidents this year. And, obviously Saros can shoulder some of the blame, but it's not fair to put it all on him, I don't think. Leading scorers were led by Philip Forsberg. His goal totals were down, but point-wise finished with 76. Jonathan Marchessault and Steven Stamkos were next, 2 and 3. Of course, they were two of the biggest free agent signings, not only for this team, but for the entire league last summer. Marchessault had 56 points and Stamkos 53. Their point totals and goal totals for both really, really low. Some of the lowest they've had in recent years by a lot, actually, especially in the case of Stamkos. Ryan O'Reilly also had 53 points here as well. And of course, Roman Yossi's numbers also down. He missed a little bit of time this year as well, which did not help. We've seen cases where Yossi's put up 80, 90, 100 points or close to 100 points, right? So he's been a very effective high-end D, and it's just like all these players having career lows or dropping back at one time, it's just unheard of. Last year, the big turning point for the Nashville Predators was they were not playing well, and they was halfway through the season or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. It was far enough along in the season. They had a trip booked to Vegas, and they had an extra couple of days off. They were supposed to be going to a U2 concert, and Andrew Brunette and Barry Trotz decided, you know what, these guys are not playing well enough. They don't deserve to have this big event. We're canceling it. And then look what happened. They canceled that and they went on a run. Now, they didn't have that this year. And, of course, they're probably thinking with all the extra talent they've added, because not only did they add Marchessault and Stamkos, they also added Brady Shea in the back end as well. Really, if you had a 99-point season and you've changed your mix and you've added all this impact players, you're certainly not thinking you're going to be a draft lottery team, right? It's not where you're thinking at all. The problem here, though, going into next year is they have a lot of players already under contract. They have $17.3 million in available salary cap space, so that's a decent amount to do something with. But they do have like over $78 million already locked up and confirmed for next year on 21 contracts. So there's not much there. If you just take a look at their expiring contracts now, it's a very short list. Normally this section of the video is a lot longer, but for RFAs, they only have Luke Evangelista. And on the UFA side, they have Mark Delgaizo, who's a Group 6 free agent, and Jakub Vrana. Vrana's probably not coming back. Delgaizo may or may not come back either. So, really, they got to sign Evangelista, and that's about it. They're probably going to be a little bit reluctant to do much in terms of contract extensions. Now, they have signed a few players here recently as well, and they have, their entire blue line locked up for next year. You can look at their roster and be like, okay, well, these 6D have contracts next year. You know who's likely going to be there, barring trades, of course. But some players that are eligible for extensions include Michael Bunting, Colton Sissons, Cole Smith, Michael McCarron, Jeremy Lauzon, Andreas Englund, Joel Osterley, Nick Blankenberg, and Justice Noonan. I don't know that we're going to see much of anything in terms of extensions. I think this team is probably going to be like, okay, we have a lot of players already locked up to longer-term deals. And based on the season we had, we need to make some adjustments here. The last thing we need is more long-term contracts. So I'm not sure that really any of those players are going to get an extension. Maybe during the season, once they have a better idea where things are at, but they're all on the final year of their deals. Like I said, I'd be shocked if any, maybe the odd one gets a 1-year bump or something for these, players that are fringe players, but that's about it. As far as impactful rookies that could join the team next year, we saw Matthew Wood get signed, so he certainly has potential to be an impact player next year. You get some other young players. It's hard to say how things will go because they have so many veterans in the forward group specifically that are locked up and have roster spots already kind of, basically with their name on it because of their contracts. But Joaquin Campbell, David Edstrom, are they going to be able to make the NHL and be a full-timer next year? Maybe not. Even Wood's debatable probably as well. So, will they have a lot of youth in their lineup more than they have now? Probably not a lot, no. So the top questions facing this team is, well, for one, is they're going to make a coaching change. And the more time goes on, the less likely it's going to be. I think Barry Trotz obviously has a long-standing relationship with Andrew Brunette. So I would think that he would owe him enough respect that if he was going to make a change, he would not wait long to do it so that the team has ample time to find a new coach and that Brunette has ample time to find work as well for next year. Brunette's already been through that once before when he was took over the Panthers team after Joel Quenneville had to be let go, and he was left in limbo for quite some time before they decided to come back with Paul Maurice. So I'm sure he doesn't want to be through that again. So the bigger question, I guess, is I think he's probably going to be back. If you look at the way the year before went, and I think Barry Trotz is smart enough to be like, okay, a lot of the reason why this team didn't work is the way it's the roster, right? All the moves that he made didn't work out. So I think he's, going to shoulder enough of the blame here. And I would be surprised if Brunette was let go. But I know listening to Brunette speak at his end of season media availability, that he seemed very unsure. He really did. Listening to players talk at their end of season media availabilities, I think a lot of them made it sound like that they made adjustments as the season went along, but I think that there's going to have to be a lot more, and I think with Brunette, it's going to have to be some adjustments, not only in his style of coaching, systems, he's going to have to make a lot of adjustments as a coach, and I guess that's going to be Trotz's determining factor here is does he think he can make that transition successfully? So we'll have to see. Obviously, That's a big decision to make. Obviously, do they try to trade one of these players they sign long term? I mean, it's going to be challenging. I know I've seen numerous articles already in writers wondering what they're going to do. Could they trade Marchessault or Stamkos? Specifically those two guys were the main names brought up. Obviously, their numbers were way down, and they even made not like they teamed up together to go to Nashville, but when they were both in free agency, they definitely did talk about possibly ending up at the same team, being former teammates. Of course, Marchessault was in Tampa briefly, and obviously had a new Stamkos, so they did chat and made that decision together. Doesn't mean one can't be traded. Now, Stamkos has a full no move. Marchessault has a modified no trade. So it would not be easy to do. I don't know if Stamkos is wanting to at all. They had numerous opportunities to trade Ryan O'Reilly last year. They had offers. He could have went back to the Leafs, and the Senators were also big time into trying to get O'Reilly. And even though he does not have trade protection, Barry Trotz figured, being a longtime veteran that he has a lot of respect for it, even though he didn't have to, he decided he would speak to O'Reilly to see if he wanted to do something like that based on how the season was going. And O'Reilly said, no, I signed here for a reason. I want to see this through. I don't want to leave. So they didn't pull the trigger. I don't know what the offers were, but I know the Leafs and Senators were both very, very interested in getting O'Reilly to go to their teams, and they elected not to make that move. Now, like I said, not necessarily that O'Reilly was part of the problem, but you got to look at players that have contracts that are more tradable, players that have more value. And obviously, he is a kind of guy, especially for playoffs, that a lot of teams would like to have. So clearly, will they make a move like that? It's maybe, but it's not going to be easy. And it's obviously going to be largely up to those players. Did they mess up their mix? Did they just bring in the wrong players? It doesn't mean they're bad players, but just do they have the right mix? And the problem here, like I said, though, is whether they trade Stamkos or Marchessault, because that's not going to be easy, is how do they change their mix? They have so many players locked up with longer-term, bigger money deals. It's not going to be an easy chore to do at all. So, clearly that is a big, big problem. Now, what do they do at the draft? Now, that's another thing. At the 2025 NHL Draft, like I said, they're guaranteed a top 5 pick. Do they take the impact player, or are they so engrossed in win now mode that they consider trading it if they can get themselves a high-end impact player? Now, they went out and got impact players last year and it didn't work, so I don't know. And it's been a while since they've had a high pick like this. They do have an older team and a lot of older players. It probably would be great, I think, for the organization to have potential young stud coming into the organization that they can grab at that pick. So I think they keep the pick, but I do wonder. We saw last summer Barry Trotz as a GM, which was new to everybody, was very aggressive and was not afraid to take big swings. So I'm not saying he's going to do it. I haven't heard that he would do it, but it makes me wonder if he would. But that's the thing. That's the thing here. Is how is he going to get himself out of this mess? Can they just make adjustments with the style, the coach, the systems, and have the same players and get a better result? It seems unlikely, but I don't know. I mean, the back end to me is not good enough. The forward group has a lot of talented players, but not everybody that's talented works well together. So it's going to be a real challenging situation. You look at O'Reilly, you look at Marchessault, you look at Stamkos. If they don't want to go and they're not, asking to leave, it's going to be very, very challenging to do it. So I don't know. This is one of the tougher teams to really pinpoint an offseason plan for. Because like I said, contract-wise, you got to sign Evangelista, you're pretty much done. Okay, he's a young player you want to keep around. After that, you have a top 5 pick of the draft. Do you trade the pick for a stud player that can have an immediate impact, or do you take the potential stud player that can help you maybe in a year or two's time and for years to come? And other than that, I don't see them going into free agency again like they did last year. That doesn't make any sense. They have some space, but they don't have many roster spots. They could sign players, but they need to move players to do it. So it's going to be tricky to do. I don't know. They're kind of not really handcuffed, but it's going to take an awful lot of creativity and it's going to be tough to say what they do to right the ship here. So let me know what your thoughts are. How do you think the Nashville Predators get out of this between contracts, the draft, free agency, and trades? What do you expect them to do to try to come back next year stronger and to bounce back and to maybe see if they can be a playoff team here yet again? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. I'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.